All right. So nice to meet you all of you guys. My name is Loic. Today we are going to cover the topic of how we can secure PII data using DBT. Basically, what I'm a data analyst working at Human 37. We are a data agency helping clients from data collection through data activation. Basically, that's it. Um, I've seen that Timur called me like the Black Widow. I'm fine with it. I just hope that it's not going to be my new nickname. But even though Glenn is new, the new nickname of Glenn is Gandalf, and that's quite priceless. So I'm fine with the nickname that Timur gave me. All right. So the agenda of today, we are first going to recap a bit what the topic of data minimization is, what are the different benefits of it, and also what kind of use case are useful when we want to secure PII data and so on. Then we are going also to cover different types of methods and techniques of data minimization. And also during the live demo, we are going to show how we can implement those techniques with DBT. Then I also wanted to show you how we can, with your data stack, integrate that DBT component, and also how we manage to use DBT to secure PII data. Then obviously we are going through the live demo, and at the end of the conference, if we have enough time, we can also have like a quick Q&A session. All right. So guys, I wanted to just sum up a bit the different types of benefits of data minimization and why it matters. Um, One of the most like obvious one would be the fact that it is helpful to comply with the GDPR regulation. Typically, that's something you are going to hear a lot of time. But also, it can be quite useful to consider data minimization, the data minimization topic, for things like the fact that it's also from an ethical perspective, you have ethical consideration. So what I would like to, what I mean by that is the fact that in the principles of data minimization, you have the fact that you are collecting data, you are using data, but you should always only collect data that you are going to use at the end, because it does not make sense to collect data just for the sake of collecting data. That's why I also wanted to mention that ethical consideration could be a benefit of data minimization. Then we also have another benefit, which would be quite also obvious, which is the fact that in terms of data security, it's quite important. We can think about data leakage, data breaches, and so on. So it means that in the end, if you are creating tables or views with data which is masked or redacted, and so on and so on, then if you have a leakage of those data, in terms of security, it's quite handy to have those data which are secure, especially when we are talking about PII data. And the last one, and it's quite important because most of the time, like the topic of data privacy in general is quite disregarded compared to other topics, because specific stakeholders cannot directly see how it can impact the businesses. But indeed, it can. Why? Because in terms of data cost, the idea of integrating data minimization principle and privacy by design in a more general terms, it's quite useful also in terms of data cost, and maybe not data cost, but cost reduction. It's the better wording for that. One great example could be the fact that one of the technique that you are almost all using, I'm guessing, is the fact that when you are aggregating data, it's somehow a data minimization method. And using data aggregation and aggregate your data is a way for you to reduce the cost of your data warehouse or data usage. So this could be something that you want to discuss with different stakeholders, like the financial team and so on, to make them understand that incorporating data minimization principle can also have an impact on business. So that's mainly the different data minimization benefits that I wanted to highlight. I also wanted to discuss a bit with you different kind of use cases that could be quite interesting. Um, the first one would be the fact that in terms of accessibility, um, managing PII data and having like principle and processes to make sure that the right person is accessing the right data, it's quite important. And it can be easily done within your data warehouse. And also the fact that you will secure PII data, it means that at some point you are going to create views and tables, and by creating those view and tables, you are going to be able to select and decide and manage who is going to have access to which table and to which information. So that could be one important use case. Another more concrete use case would be, for example, a kind of audience explorer. So let's imagine that you have your customer base and you are a marketeer. You have access to different dimensions and you want to create an audience. Then let's say that you ask your data team to create an audience explorer to just have an idea of the size of a specific cohort. Then it does not make sense for those marketers and for the marketing team in that context to have access to PII data. So here it could be a good idea to have a specific table where you are going to apply some of those data minimization techniques in order to create a specific table that then you are going to use as a base table for such specific use case. So here, the audience explorer. So that's two specific use cases we can think of and that are quite important in our context and with also how we manage PII data and so on. So now I would like to move on to the second part of this presentation, which are a bit an overview of the different data minimization methods and techniques that exist. Obviously, it's not a fully exhaustive list of all the methods that exist, but those are the main ones. So one of those is the data pseudonymization. So it's the fact that you will have a specific value for a specific data, and you are going to pseudonymize that value so that it's not possible to understand what is the real value of that specific data. Other techniques that we are also going to cover in this presentation is data masking. So here the idea would be to mask either the whole value of a specific variable or a specific proportion of that value. Then we also have data redacting. Here again, the idea would be to make sure that a specific user with no sufficient access would not be able to see what is the real value of a specific variable. It has been mentioned before, but we also have data aggregation in general, which is a data minimization technique in itself. So I guess that most of you have already used that one. Then we also have that technique, which is quite interesting. It's called data swapping. It's not that easy to implement in SQL, but in Python it should be quite easy to do. So here the idea is that let's take an example of gender, for example. We know that the population distribution of gender is 50-50, 50 male, 50% female. I'm realizing that the example is not that great. So let's take another example, sorry. So let's take an example of a variable where you have a distribution which is more specific. Like, let's say you have three values, X, Y, Z, and you have 10%, 20%, and 70%. Then here the idea would be to use that raw data and to swap the values such that the variable in itself is going to keep the same distribution. So it means that when you are going to look at a specific row, you know that that variable is going to have a probability to have been swapped. But if you check the whole column and the whole variable, and that you are doing like that you are computing specific metrics such as the average or the median and so on, the aggregate value is going to be the right one because we kept the distribution inside the variable. But when you are going to see a specific, when you are going to check a specific row, you cannot be sure that the value is the right one. So that's the whole idea behind data swapping. And then we also have synthetic data. So here you have quite a lot of different libraries that are accessible to just generate fake data. We are not going to cover that specific part, but we are using synthetic data in the demonstration. For those who are a bit interested in how I managed to create such synthetic data, it's quite easy. It's a library which is called Faker, and I was just using a Python, and I was just generating a fake customer-based database. Okay, so those are the techniques that can be used to minimize data. How can we integrate such principle in our data stack? So here you see it's a quite common data stack. So you have your database. You are using, let's say, a data warehouse, whatever. It could be BigQuery, Snowflow, whatever. It does not matter. And then you have your different use cases, ESP, media, reporting, and so on. So here, how we are going to secure data is by using dbt. So for those who are not aware of what dbt is, it's a data transformation tool that is going to be plugged directly on top of your data warehouse, and it can be seen a bit as the brain of the data warehouse. That's the place where you are going to store all your different business models and business specificities to compute your metrics, to compute your different tables, your different threads, audiences, and so on and so on. The main advantage of dbt is the fact that it allows you to use a bunch of different features, such as versioning, also the fact that you can run jobs within dbt. You also have access to data lineage and so on and so on. So dbt has a lot of different advantages, and this is the reason why we are using dbt in that demonstration, in that demo, sorry. Also, one other point that I wanted to mention is the fact that in dbt, you have the community of dbt, which are building functions, but they call that macros, whatever, and you can put together different types of macros and create packages. And then those packages, you can use them and you can share them to other people from the community. And that's what we are going to use in that demo. We are going to use a specific packages that has been created by the community, which is called dbt privacy. And I'm going to show you how we can integrate that dbt package in our dbt project in order to secure PII data. So just before jumping into the demo, I just wanted to show you what's going to be the expected result of such methods, of such applying those methods, sorry. So here you see that you have a table that contains PII data. So you have the first name, last name, the gender, the age, the email, the phone number, and even the password of those users. And now the expected result is the fact that now you are going to have only access to a masked version of the last name And you see that then when you combine it with the first name, you don't have access to the full name, or at least it's a masked full name. Here, I'm also going to show you how you could redact the gender if you don't want a specific stakeholder to have access to such information. Here, another technique could be also, instead of having the age category of that specific user. And then another technique that we are going to see is how we can hash specific information to only have access to the hash version of that variable. So that's basically it for the introduction. It's a bit long, but it was a bit necessary to just have the context and the business context of that presentation. So I wanted to show you the raw data, which is stored here. So as you can see, that's the screenshot I've shown you just right before. So it's just a table that is in GCP, more specifically in BigQuery. And then the output is going to be another table. You could name it whatever you would like, but that's the name I've chosen. So let's dive in DBT. So for the sake of that presentation, I'm using DBT Cloud, but be aware that you can use DBT Core. It's exactly working as I'm going to show you right now. The first thing that we will have to do is to create a package with an s.yaml file if it's not done right, if it's not already done. That file must be at the root level of your project. Then for those who are not aware of how you can integrate packages in DBT, you just have to type DBT Hub, and here you are going to land on a page, which is the packages hub. And here I'm going to search for privacy. And you see here, we have access to the privacy, the DBT privacy package. When I'm clicking on it, I directly have access to the documentation of that package. And it's quite handy because here you have all the information needed to use those macro that have been created by the community. So you have access to the name of the macro. You also have access to the different arguments. Also the information about knowing whether the argument is optional or not, and so on and so on. So when you are searching for a specific thing and specific feature, go to that hub and look for the different packages. Most of the time, you are going to find something that has been created by the community and that can be reused in your DBT project. All right. So here, when you land on that page, you will see that most of the time, and I think 99% of the time, you have the installation process of that package. It's super easy. You just have to copy, paste those two lines. The first line, you only need to do it once. So if you already have different packages, you only need to copy paste the second line. So you copy paste them, and you are going to paste them in the packages.yaml file. So here it is. You see, you just have to paste it, and then you save the file. And once it's done, in the command line, you are going to type dbt deps. So the dbt deps command is a command to install all the dependencies of dbt and the packages. So normally it does not take a long time. So here you see it was a success. So it means that now you have access to a hidden file, which is called dbt packages. And in that hidden file, you will see all the folder that you have loaded in your DBT project. And more specifically, here you have access to the folder that contains all the macros from DBT privacy. All right. Now, what are we going to do? We are going to first create what we call a staging table. That's just the raw PII table. Okay, so let's call it staging user no slide. Okay. Okay. So here we are going to create the table that will contain the raw data so that we are going to be able to compare what was the input state and what is the output state. I just realized that I'm forgetting something. Obviously, what you need to do is in the source.yaml file, you have to specify the name and the database, the schema, and the table of your raw data. So here it is already done. So as you can see here, what I'm using a project which is called Cedric Sandbox. Okay, so that's the name of my GCP project. Then the dataset of my project is called dbt underscore human37. And then the table that I'm using is the staging PBD user PII. Okay, so you just need to specify those. Okay, once it's done, it's going to appear under here in the lineage. Okay, if you have any issue with that, and if you see that you have an error, most of the time it's due to the fact that it's a YAML file, and so it's because of the indentation. So make sure that you are respecting the indentation. It's very important for YAML files. All right, so let's get back to the first model that we are going to create. Here we are just going to select our different columns. So we are going to select the user ID, the first name, the last name, the gender, the email. We also have access to the password. We also have access to the age. Do we have access to something else? I'm just checking my notes. Yes, we do have access to the phone number. All right. And that's it, basically, yeah. Also, something I would like to do is just for the sake of the presentation, that's not mandatory, but here I'm just doing, oops, okay, user number. So I'm just attaching one specific number to each user. It's just easier than to filter and to order by that column so that we can easily compare the input and the output states of the table from. So if you are not aware of that, if you type double underscore, then you have access to just the list of different Jinja templates. Yeah, Jinja templates. And here, the one we are going to use is the source one. Okay. And then here, you just have to fill in the right source. Here, what we want to use is the fake data. So that's the source name. And then the object name is going to be the name of the table. And the name of the table that we are going to use is this one. Okay. Okay. It's important that you run the model, because then if you want to refer to that model, if it has not been run before, then it's not going to work. So let's run it and let's check if there is no error. Okay. Yeah, it's working. You will see that I'm going to receive a failure, but it's an issue we have with our dbt project. It's not. So here you see it has been run successfully. So it's going to take a bit of time, and then I'm going to receive a failure. But let's disregard that. You see failure, but if I'm doing a preview and so on, it's going to work. Yeah. Let's check also here. Normally, yeah, you see the view has been created. All right. Then what we want to do is also the output layer. So let's call it no slide as well. Here, that's the part where we are going to use different macros and techniques to secure the PII data. So let's start. So we have the user number that we have created just right before. We have the user ID. So that's not the PII data. So yeah, I mean, that could be arguable, but let's consider it's not PII data. No, we have the first name. Some of you can consider the first name as a PII data. Let's consider it's not a PII data, but let's consider that the full name is a PII data. So meaning that I want to mask a specific portion of the last name, for example. How can we do that? To do that, we are going to use a macro from the DBT packages. How we call macros? You have to use curly brackets, okay? So double curly brackets, then you need to specify the name of the packages, okay? So here it's DBT privacy, and then you put a dot, and then you need to specify which macro you want to use from that specific package. Here we want to use the mask function, all right? When it's done, what you need to do is to specify which column you want to mask. So here, what we want to mask is the last name column, all right? Now, let's check in the documentation. You will see that if we refer to the mask function here, you will see that you also have access to different arguments that you can use. So either you just specify that like this, and it means that the full value is going to be masked. Either what you can do is also adding specific argument just to specify and to contextualize the context of the context of the macro. So that's what we are going to do. So let's just put it there. Okay. All right. So what it does, it's just going to only keep the first 4 character of the last name, right? I'm just wondering, yeah, it's going to work. So let's call it last name, but this time let's call it masked last name. All right. All right. Now we have a masked last name. So let's say that we also want to have the full name. So let's use the concat, and then what we can do is just reuse that okay as mask full name. Okay. What else do we have? We also have the gender. Let's say that we want to redact that variable. So what we can do is case when gender is not null, then then let's say that we are just going to undefine and as redacted gender. So here, for all the specific values, when you have a value, you are just going to transform that value by undefined, so that the guy who has access to that specific table is not going to be able to see and to know, okay, that specific user is a male or a female or whatever. So that's a way for you, for instance, to redact data. So we also mentioned that the fact that we had the age variable and we want to transform it into an age category. So here, how we can do it, case when age between 0 and then 0, 18, for instance, then when age between, I don't know, and 35, then okay, and when age between, I mean, just above 35, then plus 35. And as age category. So here it could be also a technique to minimize data, for instance, and not be aware of what's the real age of that specific user, for instance. Let's use another macro from the DBT package. So again, we do the same as before, but this time we are going to use the hash function. All right. So here we want to hash the email, for instance. One of the arguments is this one, and so this one we are going to use. So here, to give you a bit of context, we are going to use the user ID of that email to hash the function. So you need to make sure that the granularity of the email and the user ID, I mean, the granularity of the variable that you want to hash and the granularity of the expression that you are going to use is the same, or that the granularity of the seed is higher. All right, then that's the hashed email. And then we also had like the phone number. So let's use phone number. Okay, let's only keep 2 as a mask. Phone number. Okay. Then from, we are going to refer to the staging user no slide table, and then on by user number sending. Okay. Did we do it here? No, but it's not. It's okay. All right. Let's hope it's working. Okay, it has worked. Here you can see it. So now let's check. We have here. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, so here we have the input table with the raw data, with the PII data. Nothing has been either masked, redacted, or hashed. Then let's check this new one. It's a live demo, so it's expected that a few things are not going to work as expected. Okay, it's here. Okay, let's check that out. Okay, I think I have an issue, and I think I know why. Right. I think it's because of that. Well, I'm not sure 100%, but okay. No. Well. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I know. Yeah, that's the one. So here, what happened is the fact that you have people that have a last name which is shorter than 3 characters. So if you keep only the 4 first character, then the macro is going to bug, because it's not going to work, because it is expecting at least 4 characters, but you only have 3 for specific values. So I think the issue is due to that. So let's check again. And this time, let's cross the finger, making sure it's working this time. Okay. Oh, fuck. Yeah. Okay, no. Right. Yeah. Okay. To be honest, I don't have any clue about how to solve that right now. I think it's very specific to the data that I've used. So the fake data that I've used, so the synthetic data. Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know how I can solve that. Maybe just trying a last thing. here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think the issue is still the one I mentioned. So the fact that you have specific user with a full name that somehow is not with a full name which is not long enough. And so this is why when I removed those specific optional argument, you can see that it's working as expected. So here it's very specific to the data used. I'm sorry for that, but yeah, you can see that here it is working. And we managed to secure PII data using different techniques. So we have used hashing, we have used redacting, we have used masking, um, we have used aggregation somehow with the age transformed into age category. Obviously, what you could do also is grouping by. It's also going to work, but that's another way to do it. So yeah, that closes the live demo. I think we are a bit above the timing of the 30 minutes, so I don't know if we have time to cover Q&A. I haven't checked if, okay, there is no specific question. So basically that's it for the presentation. So yeah, I don't know, Timo, if you have anything to add to the presentation or...